I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Mutual's yearbook for 2011 today. And when you open the yearbook, the first sentence you read from Peter Marks, Chief Executive of the Cooperative Group, is 2011 has been a tough year on the UK high street, and that's no less true for cooperative and mutual forms of business. And one of the remarkable things I think about this yearbook is that you wouldn't know that from looking at the figures in the yearbook. One of the things which really stands out is quite how steady many of these figures are. The revenue of the sector has been growing steadily over the last few years. It's now at just under £112 billion a year. Equally important in the current climate, employment has held steady. It's just over 1 million people work in the mutual sector. And at a time when we're told that we're living through the worst economic crisis in 80 years, it's amazing that from reading the Mutual's yearbook, you really wouldn't get that much sense of that. And I think this is something which has been corroborated by research elsewhere on the mutual sector and the employee-owned sector. A report published by Cass Business School last year, available on the Employee Ownership Association website, showed that employee-owned companies are remarkably resilient to downturns and have actually survived the recession far more successfully in terms of their productivity and their employment than shareholder-owned companies. And that area of the economy, as the report details, is worth £30 billion to the UK economy. But even stranger, there are plenty of areas in the yearbook where things actually seem to be going really rather well. The cooperative sector has outperformed the rest of the UK economy since the beginning of the financial crisis in 2008, growing by 21% over that period. Building societies have been doing well in terms of attracting savings deposits over the last couple of years. In the first half of 2010, they had only 6% of the savings deposits market, whereas in the first half of 2011, that's been up to 18%. Then many of the stories that you'll see, many of the case studies in the yearbook are of new mutuals being established. And we know that the government has pledged to create public sector mutuals, building on the examples of things like Foundation Trust Hospitals, of which there are now 138 in the UK, employee-owned mutuals in public services such as Central Surrey Health. I think it's very important if the government is really committed to this agenda that it learns from some of these examples and builds on the fact that public sector mutuals have been around for some time. There's a particularly nice case study in here of Lewes Football Club. I don't know if Lewes Football Club are here today, but which was heading towards financial turmoil around 2008, 2009. It's converted itself into community ownership in 2010, since when attendance has been up by 80%, even though the club got relegated. So there are some things that mutualism can't guarantee, but there's quite a nice contrast with the sort of culture of Premiership football clubs nowadays, where you don't imagine fans becoming more interested when their clubs get relegated. There have been 20 new GPs providers of out-of-hours services have been established as mutuals since 2004. And I think one of the things which is most enjoyable reading this report are many of the more detailed case studies of some of these new mutuals. And Peter was just talking about the opportunity to expand the mutual sector further. And I think it's really exciting that there was so much enthusiasm across society, policy and the economy for using mutual-type models to solve various economic and social and public problems. So I think, just finally, what's going on here? Why is this sector, if not always thriving, is withstanding the crisis to such a great extent? And I think it's really important to be quite bold about what the mutual sector stands for, and I think that's what comes out of this report. And I think there is a groundswell at the moment which goes across the political spectrum, across our society, our economy. This is what I write about in the introduction to the yearbook. You'll see in the second section of the yearbook. There is a groundswell which no longer wants to allow profit maximisation to become the central organising and managing principle for the way in which assets and risks and employees are managed. And I think there's a very important distinction which I draw out in my section of the yearbook between what's between identifying profit maximization and mere profit making. I think we all accept that when organizations are well run and efficiently managed, that there are going to be profits, there are going to be surpluses, there is going to be something left over. But the point about mutualism is that bit of leftover, that surplus and that profit is shared and poured either back into the organization or it is distributed to its members. Employee-owned companies, many of them make profits, many of them make ample profits, but that is not their reason to exist, and that is not the main focus of the way in which managers take decisions. And I really think that it's going to be very exciting to see over the next few years the way in which people become more engaged and more interested, both in politics and across the public, in ways of running organizations which do not place the maximization of profit at their heart and as their raison d'etre. And I think these examples, such as RBS in the banking sector, or the way in which BP was being run in pursuit of maximum profits in the energy sector, has demonstrated that when organizations put profits before their customers and their employees and society at large, that simply externalizes risks and externalizes costs back onto the public, back onto employees and customers. And I think that really helps to understand why mutuals are in such a good position at the moment and such a good position to seize the current political and economic moment. And I think people do want an alternative to many of those, what became the sort of orthodox way of running companies. And I think one of the questions then is, why do we not hear more about this? Why do more people not want to join mutuals? Well, of course, firstly, as Peter said, already so many people are already members of mutuals. In some respects, they've become a kind of victim of their own success. 1 in 3 people being members of mutuals. I wonder how many people actually know that. Some people may not even know that they're a member of a mutual. In some respects, it's something that has become almost a kind of an invisible part of our society and our economy. But I think the government, the coalition government, has helped to put mutualism back on the agenda. It's helped to raise policy and public interest in mutualism. I think it's important not to get too diverted by the public sector agenda, which is obviously, many of us would be supportive of the government's ambitions to increase that area of the public sector and of the economy. But of course, we mustn't forget all of the other areas of mutualism in financial services, in the private sector, in housing associations, and all the different sectors that are discussed in the report. And I think it's one of the goals of this report, and one thing which I think we hope can come of this sort of report, is to actually get some of this experience and some of this knowledge out there beyond the people who are already sold on these ideas. And I think really what we'd like to see coming out of this kind of report is for people to read it, people who are from outside of the mutual sector, people in politics, people in the media, and people across society, and hope that they might say a couple of things, really. Firstly, wow, I hadn't realized quite what a large part of the economy mutuals are, and how many different kinds of mutuals there are, the variety of mutuals. But secondly, why don't we invent even more varieties? Why don't we grow these sectors as they currently exist? What else could this type of organisation, this type of ownership be implemented to achieve? So thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I hope you enjoy the yearbook. Thank you.